Hi, and welcome to Week 7 of Inside the Huddle. I'm Daily Review Sports Editor Geoff Stoute, joined by Central Catholic coach Tommy Minton, where this week the Eagles will face a huge matchup against rival Vermilion Catholic. Central Catholic comes into the game 6-0 after defeating Highland Baptist a week ago, 64 to 25. Meanwhile, Vermilion Catholic is trying to rebound after a week ago. They fell late to Ascension Episcopal 40 to 39. It'll be quite a matchup this week. The Eagles are ranked number 6 in the Louisiana Sports Writers Association poll and tied with Ascension Episcopal for number 1 in the power rankings. VC is number 2 in the power rankings and number 7 in the prep polls. VC comes in with a high-flying offense led by their passing game. Quarterback Hunter Frith has completed 107 of 188 passes this year for 1,882 yards and 21 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions. Receiving wise, they feature basically a four-headed monster: Tyler Duran, Emil Trahan, Peyton Trahan, and Devin Constantine. Duran leads the team in receiving with 33 catches, 669 yards, and 5 scores. Emil Trahan has 19 receptions, 416 yards, and 5 scores. Peyton Trahan, 27 receptions, 334, 3 touchdowns, and Constantine, 20 receptions, 352, and 8 touchdowns. Eagles, meanwhile, averaging 54 points a game. Their defense is surrendering 25 a game. Stefano Garisco leads the squad in rushing this season. 144 carries, 1,356 yards, and 20 touchdowns. And quarterback Blake Byrne is passed for 29 of 49 passes for 611 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, while Greg Leger leads the receivers with 10 catches for 329 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Grisco also has 10 catches for 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. This week is a game featuring many storylines. You know, the Eagles are trying to knock off VC for the first time in a couple of years. It's a rivalry game, and for the last couple of years, the VC defense has seemed to have Garisco's number as far as run game. So now, Coach, I guess first of all, thoughts on this matchup. Big time.
Well, you said a lot right there as far as the way this matchup's worked out the past few years. And one of the things we stress to the kids coming in is you take your past experiences and you either run and hide from them or you learn from them and use it to motivate yourself. And hopefully we're going to do the latter and learn from it and use it to motivate ourselves to perform at a very high level this week. And when you play a game of this caliber, to me, it's why you get involved in athletics. It's why you coach. It's why you compete. It's a very evenly matched up football game, and I feel like it makes you take your ability to the next level, and to me, that's fun.
As far as the strategy this week, obviously last week against Bronte Griffin, you said you want to limit the big play and keep him between the 20s. Is that kind of what you're looking at this week with Frith? He's going to get yards. He's going to got some quality receivers. Is that kind of what the same?
Well, what they bring into the ball game that's hard to match up with is you're not trying to shut down one marquee receiver. They got 4 guys that can go get the ball. They all run good routes. They all have big play potential. And the way we're looking at it, if you put one-on-one matchups on those receivers and they got a chance to make a big play. You play zone and not pressure the quarterback, well, then he's going to sit back there all day and he's going to find an opportunity to make a big play. So you got to mix it up. You got to try to keep them off balance. But, I mean, it's always been my philosophy as long as I've been coaching. When you face a good passing offense, you want to attack the quarterback. You want to get hits on the quarterback. And a lot of times in high school, if you can put that quarterback under duress and put him under pressure, he'll make some mistakes. And basically that's what our game plan is going in.
Mm-hmm. As far as the run game, obviously Garisco's a special player. Last couple of years, obviously this is a different year, but how do you get him going this game?
Well, we get him going because we're better up front. Last year we started 4 sophomores in that game on the offensive line. Well, now those sophomores are juniors, a lot more experience, and a lot more physical with a year in the weight room under their belt. And I feel like, we do a better job up front. Give him a chance to get going, and then he'll make plays with his legs.
So, Coach, before we let you go, we'll do a little personal one-on-one 5-question segment with you. Get to know you a little better. First of all, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie would be anything with John Wayne in it. I guess I'm telling my age right there.
What's the best coaching advice you've been given, and by whom?
Well, I mean, the best advice that I can ever remember giving me is when I first started. I used to think I'd have these great game plans, and we'd go out and wouldn't execute them real well. And then one of my former coaches, Lloyd DuPont, told me, he said, what it comes down to is not how much you know, but how much you can get the kids to know.
So, how has football changed during your years as coaching, from the beginning to now?
Well, I mean, you can look at the systems on offense have changed. I mean, 30 years ago, if you threw the ball 10 times in a game, you were a wide open offense. Everybody ran the football. Nowadays, it's a lot more wide open. I mean, football evolves from the NFL to the college ranks to the high school ranks, and we're just following suit. But it's the wide open passing game that's changed the most.
What's the best car you ever had?
Well, I mean, the best car I ever had goes back to my senior year in high school. I had that 404 barrel Charger, and used to take it out there and drag race with other guys. Typical high school stuff.
And last thing I'm kind of asking everybody, kind of interesting. If you can go back to high school and replay one football game, what would it be and why?
Well, yeah, it would definitely be the last football game I ever played in my senior year. We ended up that season with a 9-1 record, and there was a 3-way tie for first place in our district, and we missed the playoffs because of a coin toss. In those days, they didn't have a wild card system. First and second place got in, third place didn't. So we were 9-1, and in the Sports Writers poll, we were ranked number 6 in the state, and we didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah. So, and you played for?
Thibodeau High. We played South Lafourche. We were week 10, and they beat us, and that kept us out the playoffs.
All right, Coach. Appreciate it, and good luck this week.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Central Catholic and Vermilion Catholic is just one of 2 big matchups in the Tri-City area this week, as Edie White and Patterson will square off Friday night in Thibodeau. Patterson comes into the contest having won 3 straight contests. They are 4-2 overall and 2-0 in district. The Lumberjacks, Edie White, meanwhile, is also 4-2 overall and 2-0 in district. The Cardinals come into the game averaging 34.5 points a game and surrendering 22.7, while Patterson, a week ago, they edged Thomas Jefferson 21-20. They're led on offense by running backs Jeremy Rounds and Nick Shanklin. Rounds has carried 45 times for 454 yards and 5 touchdowns, while Shanklin has 93 carries for 448 yards and 4 scores. Quarterback Benjamin Sposito has completed 34 of 41 passes for 519 yards and 7 touchdowns and 1 interception out of Edie White's wing T offense. He's also rushed 40 times for 199 yards and 3 scores. In receiving, Scott Ford and Alan Taylor have similar numbers. Ford has 8 catches for 115 yards and 2 scores, and Taylor 8 catches for 106 yards and 2 scores. Patterson comes into the game after defeating Berwick 55-7 in district action a week ago. The Lumberjacks are led this season by Sebastian Charles at quarterback, Tristan Osama at running back, and Nehemiah Augustus at wide receiver. Charles has rushed 73 times for 374 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's completed 72 of 109 passes for 1,111 yards, 14 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions. Asamaj rushed 75 times for 352 yards and 6 touchdowns, and Augustus leads the receivers with 19 catches for 358 yards, 4 touchdowns. An interesting note, Michael Jones, who was just in his second game back from injury after missing the first 4 games of the season, has caught 6 passes for only 94 yards, but has caught 3 of those for touchdowns this season. So he'll be looking, especially, I'm sure, to have a big game this week against Edie White. Edie White and Patterson is a big rivalry. The Patterson defense this year is averaging 397.5 yards per game on offense. His defense is surrendering 250.7 yards a game. Also in the Tri-City area this week, Morgan City will be at home against Ellender. The Tigers, after starting the season 4-0, have dropped their last two games. Last week, 34-2 against South Lafourche in a game that just not a lot went right for the Tigers, and just some mistakes. They really didn't help themselves. They're looking to turn things around this week against Ellender, who comes to the game at 1-5, and they have a three-game losing streak. But last week they fell to Assumption 28-26. Assumption is ranked number 6 in the latest Class 4A power rankings, and so it's obviously one of the top teams in Class 4A. Ellender's led this year by running back Reginald Williams, who's rushed 65 times for 351 yards and 3 scores. Quarterback Curtis Anderson's a dual threat. He's completed 65 of 134 passes for 1,088 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, while he's also rushed for 61 times for 211 yards and 6 touchdowns. Devontavian Martin leads the receivers, 28 catches, 446 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and Brisson Lewis has caught 20 passes for 341 yards and 3 touchdowns. Morgan City's run game this year is led by Kedrick Scott, Malik Phillips, and Ethan Ciano, who all have similar numbers. Scott has rushed 67 times for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Phillips has 42 carries for 273 yards and 5 scores, and Ciano 38 carries for 271 yards and 4 touchdowns. Through the air, Abram Hartley leads the Tigers at quarterback. He completed 26 of 67 passes for 466 yards with 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Tigers have had to pass more in the past 2 weeks than they have all season against Westminster and against South Lafourche. And Coach Scott Tragle said that he expected once they got to district to have to pass more as teams try to crowd the line of scrimmage and take away their run game and their wing T offense. Makai Richard leads the receivers with 13 catches for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Lord Singleton has caught 6 passes for 124 yards. Meanwhile, at Berwick, the Panthers will be trying to get back on a win streak this week when they face Kaplan. Berwick had a rough outing last week, falling 55-7 to Patterson in a 2-game losing streak that began a week prior against Erath. Kaplan's 3-3 overall and 1-2 in district. They got their first district win a week ago against North Vermilion, 46-20. Colin Louvier leads Berwick's offense in running and passing. He's rushed 67 times for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns, and through the air he's completed 36 of 93 passes for 626 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Aldwin Williams is the Tri-City area's leading receiver and Berwick's leading receiver naturally. He has 25 catches for 495 yards and 6 touchdowns. Kaplan runs a wing T offense and is led by Julius Johnson on the ground. He has rushed 168 times for 907 yards and 6 touchdowns, while Michaelin Tebow, who's come on in place of another running back, Grant Frith, who is out with an injury, has carried 30 times for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns this season. Quarterback Jade Herpin for the Pirates has completed 10 of 27 passes for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also has thrown 3 interceptions this season. That's another look at the high school football season for Week 7. Thanks for joining.